All signs point to this for the Toronto Maple Leafs, as a recent report by Elliot Friedman gave some very interesting insight onto Nick Robertson's future in Toronto, and all signs point to him getting traded. We're going to break down Elliot Friedman's report, as well as discuss some other new reports backing up the fact that it is very unlikely that Nick Robertson remains a Toronto Maple Leaf heading into this upcoming season. So stay tuned for all that in this episode. But before we do, if you're part of the percentage who aren't subscribed to the channel, about 72%, make sure to hit that button. It would mean the world to Darius and myself, as we're on the road now to 12,000 subscribers, and we produce daily videos and weekly streams as well, so you're gonna want to stay tuned for that. But Darius, a lot to go over today. Specifically, we know that a couple days ago Elliot Friedman made a report. We're going to dive into the report, and it really, we touched on it briefly in yesterday's video about how it impacts Nick Robertson, but some more articles have dropped, some more rumblings are starting to happen now. It seems all but inevitable at this point that Nick Robertson is going to get traded away from the Toronto Maple Leafs. And you see this here, the Maple Leafs are still considering and looking for left wing options. And the full quote was, "I think there are things percolating out there, including Toronto considering left wing options." And of course, we discussed this in yesterday's video about how Max Pacioretty could fit the bill here. But Darius, this means if they actually are percolating and looking for left wing options, that Nick Robertson could be on his way out of Toronto. So you can see this here in an article by David Alter. Leafs reportedly looking to add left wingers. Surely this is a spot where Nick Robertson could have thrived. So Darius, we've been discussing PTOs. We've been discussing, like yesterday, Max Pacioretty. It seems like if they're percolating options here, Nick Robertson's time in Toronto is coming to an end.
Yeah, it's looking pretty interesting now because like we mentioned, and like I mentioned, in a video yesterday and on our stream over the weekend, when Elliot Friedman says something, where there's smoke, there's fire. I feel like something is going to happen pretty soon for him to be saying that. And it's not only him, multiple insiders, like you said, David Alter coming out and saying, hey, the Leafs are definitely looking at left-wing options. And when you look at the depth chart right now on Daily Faceoff, then, you're thinking, how are they going to fit another left wing in right now with the current makeup of the team? It just doesn't really make sense. And when you look at the entire forward group, I think the defense is set. I think they like what they did with their goaltending, and, everybody has opinions on that. But when you look at the forward group, it looks off. It looks weird. It looks like it's incomplete. And Brad Treliving came out last week and said it is incomplete. We're still trying to make some moves, whether that's David Kemp, whether that's Nick Robertson. We don't know exactly, but some of these details lead or lend to the fact that it might be Nick Robertson on his way out because they're looking to shore up the left wing spot. And of course, Nick Robertson plays left wing. So it's looking more and more likely to me, at least over the next couple of days, we may see Nick Robertson traded. Now, in sports, logic always, usually, almost always doesn't win, right? In a way, especially with the Toronto Maple Leafs over the last couple of years. So, logic says to maybe keep this player and try and rekindle a relationship with him, with this new coach, but maybe there was too much damage done. He wants out of Toronto. That's what it seems like right now, that he does not want to sign that contract. So it looks like, all signs point to him being traded, and probably in pretty short order here, because it makes no sense for either side, for both parties, to wait into the season. So probably get it done before training camp.
Yeah, and each day that ticks now, it's more and more likely that he does get moved, because obviously, as we all know, he's a restricted free agent, and there are other teams, I'm sure, calling in, trying to give him, or going to potentially offer sheet for Nick Robertson. They're probably calling in, looking at trading for Nick Robertson. And now that the Leafs are considering left-wing options, like David Alter mentions, I mean, at this point, Nick Robertson would have been that guy that Nick Robertson could have thrived in the left wing spot. But now that they're looking at them, it's very, very interesting. You look at the current left wing options here, which makes things, it kind of puts things into perspective for the Leafs. According to Puckpedia, the Leafs have $1.28 million in salary cap space remaining. It should be more, if not for that Lilligan contract, but we'll leave that for another day. Remaining on the roster that consists of 12 forwards. Outside of Matthew Nyes, the Leafs don't have many bona fide left wingers on their current roster. We obviously have Max Domi, could be equally useful as a center, but all of their other left-handed shots typically play at center, and Pontus Holmberg played, as we know, last season down the stretch there, and could potentially be counted on again this season, but I don't know if you can put all your eggs into the Pontus Holmberg basket in this case, the proverbial basket for Pontus Holmberg. But Darius, it's we talk about the lack of depth they have at the forward spot. We've been kind of hinting at the fact that, hey, if Nick Robertson gets traded, then what do they do from there? Maybe they're looking at guys like Pacioretty, other left wingers, in preparation for a Nick Robertson trade, because I'm sure that Brad Treliving's done his due diligence on what the value of Nick Robertson is. It's probably not astronomically high. You're probably not getting an equal level player back in a deal, because that's just how it works, especially when you don't have leverage in the situation. So it's at the point now where whatever they get for Nick Robertson probably isn't going to replace the production they need, so they're looking elsewhere and looking for left wing options. And Pacioretty, I know a lot of people were happy about that. We discussed him yesterday. Could be a very interesting fit, like we discussed, but It's crazy how big of a 180 turn it was from even just this time last year at the end of the regular season. This wasn't really considered a possibility until he requested the trade, and I thought they were going to work something out, but ultimately it seems like the relationship is hurt here.
Yeah, at first I thought they were going to work it out. I keep bringing up Jake DeBrusk. I thought it was going to be a situation like that where they would just figure it out until, maybe a year from now and just see what happens then. And like you said, too, the reaction to Max Pacioretty has been about 50-50. I see a lot of, on both sides, like, yes, he would be a great fit. No, he wouldn't be a good fit. But, the thing with Nick Robertson, it's very interesting. Will he, won't he play for the Leafs this year? It's looking unlikely, right? And they're going to have to find somebody else to play, not specifically in that spot, but left wing, because you're putting all your eggs in one basket, like you're saying, right? Because when you look at Matthew Nyes and Bobby McMahon, everything is great if everything goes to plan. If McMahon plays like he did in the second half, then everything's great. But what if he doesn't, right? You're going to need some guys to come in who have experience playing in the NHL to play left wing for you on this team this year and who can create some identity. Like I talked about, we cannot have another situation this year where you have a bunch of guys up and down the lineup and you're trying new things every game, because it's not going to work, right? So same thing with Matthew Nyes, like I brought up, right? You're hoping that he takes a step. What if he doesn't? Obviously, I'm trying to be optimistic. I think both of them will be great, and they've shown that they can be in the second half of last season, of course, the playoffs. But you are putting all your eggs in one basket with that if you don't get another left wing, and then you end up trading Nick Robertson anyway. And even trading Nick Robertson, you're going to need a roster player back. We talked about Jack McBain from Utah, starting to like that idea a little bit. Obviously, not an equal player in terms of skill, but you're getting something maybe you could use in terms of the overall team, and maybe you get a draft pick in return. But like I talked about too on a stream, don't like the idea of draft picks coming back because you're a contending team right now. You need something that can help you win immediately. So going to be very tricky for Brad Living. Obviously, he came out and said that he wants it to work, but doesn't look like it's working. We're getting very, very close to training camp, and they got to figure something out, because at the end of the day, it's hurting the Leafs as the organization as well. It's not just the player where he should be playing, right? And he's not signing. It's the organization that's losing value out of this, and obviously a roster player. So they're going to have to do something quickly.
Yeah, and you look at some of the coaching. Obviously, they made a lot of coaching staff changes. Some articles are coming out and saying that they need to articles saying that they need to retain Nick Robertson for future success. You look at the current kind of style here. Craig Berube's appointment as coach could lead to renewed chances for Nick Robertson, who was underutilized last year. Like we all know, he was put in the Sheldon Keefe dog cage. I don't think Robertson. I'm sure Robertson had some sort of inkling that I just don't think he wants to be here at this point. The team's considering lineup changes to better balance. There's a lot of things that, in theory, would lead to Nick Robertson to say, okay, let's try it with a new coach. Obviously, Sheldon Keefe is gone. He was the one that was making these decisions. But I don't think it's as simple as we initially thought, because not only have they not traded him, they haven't signed a contract, and he hasn't been offer sheeted yet. So it's going to be very interesting to see. Any final thoughts on this? It's going to continue to develop. This is the biggest question mark now. It went from Mitch Marner trade talk to now we got to figure out what's happening with Nick Robertson, because he needs to get a contract signed or get moved off, or else in a month and a half or so when the season starts against the Canadiens, they'll be even less. Unless they make another signing, they'll be one forward short of Nick Robertson here.
At first, I was thinking when this happened earlier this offseason, I thought it was a cry for help from Nick Robertson, in the way of he thinks he needs a better opportunity, and he's telling the Leafs, please move me so I can get a better opportunity. So then the Leafs will realize, okay, we have to give this player a better opportunity. But as I think back as well, if a lot of people don't remember, he started the year with the Marlies because he was a casualty of the cap situation that the Leafs were going through at the start of the year. So I wonder if he felt a little bit disrespected by that. Maybe not disrespected, but felt like he should be in the NHL, because again, his talent, says that he should be in the NHL and be given better opportunities than he was. So I wonder if he was feeling some type of way about that, right? And it's kind of bled into not just last season, but now this off season and the future. So I wonder if that, played a part into all of this, but it's going to be interesting to watch. I think something's going to happen here in the next week or two, because they're reporting for training camp pretty quickly here. Obviously preseason will take a little bit longer, but it's going to be a distraction, especially on media day or the first couple of days that everyone reports for training camp. So it's going to be interesting to watch the next week or so.
Yeah, let us know in the comments your thoughts are on this. A lot to go over, a lot that we went over, and there's a lot to go over in the future as well, as this comes to a tipping point here soon. But that'll wrap it up. Thank you guys for watching. See you tomorrow.